Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the P1 podcast with Matt and Tommy. Another one done, Mexico. Wow, I was unfamiliar with your game. Goodness gracious me. I was expecting after lap 1, turn 1, to just sit back and snooze for 71 laps. But surprisingly, I know Lando dominated and we didn't even see him the entire race. Everything else behind was absolute carnage, Tommy.
I know. Mexico City Grand Prix is usually abysmal. I've made it very clear on a few times. I think it's certain, like track layout wise, I think this may well be my least favorite track layout of the whole calendar. I think it's really, really poor, and it's produced some absolute stinkers. Of course, the altitude makes it very difficult for overtaking as well. And if you'd said to me that, you know, we'd have got this really, really enjoyable race, I wouldn't have believed you, particularly if you'd missed the race, because obviously the leader won by over 30 seconds and just completely dominated from turn 1, as is the norm in 2025. But it was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant race. Really enjoyed it.
It certainly was. And we're going to get into everything. And there's a lot of incidents to go through, by the way. Oh, my goodness. Like, I can't wait. Some of them I definitely could avoid talking about because one of them's involving Charles Leclerc. But before we get into all of that, we are literally flying to America next week, next Sunday. We'll be on a plane right now, Tommy, this time next week, which is very exciting indeed for the P1 Live Delusion Tour. There are still some tickets available, so let me just quickly read out to you. 4th of November, Seattle, Neptune Theatre. Still tickets available for that one. San Francisco is sold out, but then we go to Denver on the 10th of November at the Cervantes Masterpiece Ballroom. The 11th of November is in Dallas at the Granada Theatre. The 13th of November, we head to Toronto at the Danforth Music Hall, and Chicago the 14th of November at Park West, and then finally Brooklyn, New York at Warsaw on the 16th of November. There'll be a link in the description for you to get your tickets if you'd love to see me and Tommy. And if you're free, it's a good, fun evening. I promise you that one. Now, quick shout out to our wonderful Patreons, who, of course, will be getting extra chat at the end of this and every race review this season, and also enjoying ad-free listening and lots of other extra perks. Right, here we go then. Mexico City Grand Prix chat. We now have 4 races and 2 sprints to go until the end of the season, and the championship has got closer. So first question, something we have to cover. Not that I have overly studied the last Mexico City Grand Prix that we've had, mainly because they have been pretty poor, but was that the best race we've ever had in Mexico? And I'm going to say yes, because it sticks in the brain. So much overtaking, so much chaos, lots of controversy, incidents that were penalised and incidents that weren't. It kept us guessing all the way literally to the last lap.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's a contest, personally. We've seen the Mexican Grand Prix deliver, or the Mexico City Grand Prix, whichever it decides to be each year. But we've seen the circuit kind of deliver lap 1 chaos and its fair share of drama, but it normally comes on, as we said, lap 1, and then the rest of it is pretty boring with very minimal overtaking and a very easy one-stop. But look, it threw everything into the mix. We had different strategies. We had surprise midfielders up at the front, which we'll talk about. Lots of chaos, lots of drama, lots of controversy. Oh, it was just brilliant. It's one of the races of the season, and I cannot believe I'm saying that.
And Lando Norris won by 30 seconds,
yeah.
And you're telling me it's one of the races of the season. It's definitely up there for sure. Just purely the midfield, I guess, from second place down, delivering massively. Now we head to my most memorable moment, and it's a big one. A lot of people are quite angry with how the race ended. We all hate a race ending under a safety car. We'd love a safety car or a VSC up until about 6 or 7 laps from the end, and then it can jog on. That's essentially how it works, because then we're in the danger zone, aren't we? We're in the danger zone of the race is going to end neutralised or end any battles that we were having. Well, we had a very late virtual safety car, didn't we? Where Carlos Sainz loses the car in the stadium section, spins 180, hits the wall, I think gets a right rear puncture from that, and then he does this kind of crabbing walk with the car to this little exit road, and the car is pretty much completely off, not just the circuit, but out of any firing line. The only way Carlos Sainz's car is getting hit is if someone decides to do Mexico City Grand Prix backwards, and that was not going to happen.
Yes, you're so accurate, because the only way, you go around that very tight corner, and then you'd have to spear off, but you're going so slowly that you're not going to hit it at any speed. So it absolutely makes no sense, does it? At all. It's ridiculous.
And you're fuming.
I am fuming. I'm absolutely fuming. I was annoyed anyway, and I was a little bit, like my thought process here was, and we'll go into this in my most memorable moment when we talk about it later, but Max had good fortune in that race for sure. So a little bit after the incident, I was like, I think he has to count his lucky stars a little bit from the way that race went for him. I'd have taken P3 all day long at the start. But when I went on Twitter and saw the replay of Carlos Sainz driving into the exit road, that the only reason to say you'd done more laps, right? All the stewards would have done is push the car into the exit road. So Carlos Sainz did the job for them. So why they had to do that made absolutely no sense. And it was so frustrating, not just as a Max fan, but as a person that wants to see racing, because it wasn't even just Max. You had Piastri going after Bearman. They're incredibly close. They both got within DRS into those final laps, and we were going to potentially see two moves on the final lap of the Grand Prix, which is the absolute dream for Formula One fans that want an exciting race, when the racing is going right to the end. And it was literally like pressing a button, being like, no fun allowed. We're not allowed to do this now, because it didn't need to happen. It just did not need to happen. And that is what's so frustrating about it.
Right, let's get into a question then from P1 Patreon member Mercedes on top. Was this another choke job by the FIA? Feel like the VSC at the end wasn't needed, and some questionable calls at the start. We've not had a good old rant about the FIA for a while, have we?
No.
Decisions. We've had the odd decision here that we've questioned, but I feel like this one was a catastrophic error of judgment on many parts. Now, of course, the first one we've mentioned is the virtual safety car, which we are both in agreement was not the right decision. A double waved yellow sorts that, no problem. You don't need to neutralise the entire track for a car that is halfway in the exit road. You just don't. Come on, guys. I know there's safety, but that's literally what a double waved yellow is about. A double waved yellow is slow and be prepared to stop. I don't think Max Verstappen was prepared to stop when he gained half a second on Charles Leclerc in the stadium section and was within 0.6 going into turn one. However, the actual job of the stewards and the FIA is to make sure, and the race director is to make sure that the track is at a safe point, and I think that was more than enough to do a double wave yellow for that. We then go to Liam Lawson at the start of the race. Liam Lawson, I believe in the first couple of laps, wasn't shown on television, hence why perhaps only the select few that are looking on social media know this even happened. But Liam Lawson heading into turn one, he obviously had a pretty poor start. I think he had to pit very early, didn't he?
So he was behind the whole pack.
Yes, he was behind the whole pack. And two marshals, at least the ones we've seen, were sent out on track to pick up the debris, the carnage from lap one. Liam Lawson is entering turn one, and he very narrowly misses these two marshals that are running across the track. There are so many variables here that could have ended in utter disaster. Perhaps a marshal seeing a car coming and freezing rather than continuing to run. So many things could have happened there. Lawson, of course, commits to going the way in which he thinks the marshals aren't, but that is not a decision that a Formula One driver needs and should be making during a race. I'm sorry, and I know that it makes sense, right? If the entire field are on the other side of the track, they can fly out a marshal to pick up a bit of debris. But that is an insane oversight to not realise that a car is out of the pack and coming into turn one. That's a VSC every single day of the week. They are literal human lives at stake here. And that one is the biggest choke job of them all. We talk about the VSC, we talk about the championship and this, that and the other. Put that aside. This is literal people's safety. And the marshals do a hell of enough as it is. for this sport to make sure it continues to run the way it does. That was simply unacceptable.
Yeah, it was an insane moment, and it's a massive... I hope they investigate this. I don't think it's not even too extreme to say that they need to have a good look at this and find out why it happened, because you can't just assume that because the whole pack has gone past that a car isn't going to be on their own. The only incident that springs to mind here is when Esteban Ocon pitted at Baku for that final lap, and they just kind of did their usual podium proceedings and didn't think about another car, and they just set everything up. They need to have these systems in place where they can clearly understand, because for whatever reason, these marshals have clearly had the information, or as far as they're concerned, that the whole pack is on the other side of the track, so we're absolutely fine. And that wasn't the case. And you've hit the nail on the head that, the marshals, these are volunteers putting, their lives at danger. They shouldn't be putting their lives at danger, but they obviously were in this situation, to allow us to go racing and for this sport to run. So it shouldn't be happening at all.
It should not, and we continue because there are more things to discuss, this time with the stewards. A question from P1 Patreon member Alpha44. Should Leclerc have given back the position to Hamilton on lap 1, turn 1?
Yes, absolutely. I kind of missed this during the race, and I've watched the replay, and I cannot believe Charles Leclerc has got away with this one. Now, of course, the incident in question is 4 wide going into turn 1. Max Verstappen, of course, George Russell is very kind of annoyed at the situation because he thinks that Max has basically cut the track, and he's seen Leclerc cut the track as well, and he's gone, well, this isn't fair. But Max was ahead of those, and Max, of course, gives the place back to Hamilton. Charles Leclerc is a weird one because I kind of missed this at the time, and like I say, watching the replay, he actually makes the corner absolutely fine, and I don't really understand why he then decides to bail out. It doesn't look like he's struggling. He's out of shape, so he's losing the back end. But that being said, he's behind Lewis Hamilton going into the corner. So he cuts over the track, and I don't know if this is a case of the fact that, one, is on his teammate, so there's kind of special leniency there, and two, the stewards almost feel like they can't penalise Leclerc without penalising Verstappen for doing the same thing, and that would be even more controversial. But looking back at this, I think Charles Leclerc absolutely should have given the position to Hamilton, and Hamilton has been absolutely shafted here for essentially being the one staying on the track. So, yeah, it's a crazy situation, and I can't believe Leclerc got away with this one.
I am also, it will surprise a lot of you, of the same opinion that Charles Leclerc should have given the position back to Hamilton at the apex, which is what it always matters in terms of the racing in Formula One. Hamilton is still side by side, if not marginally ahead at the apex on the inside. Hamilton's on the inside. So Hamilton's on the inside in control of his car. Charles Leclerc is on the outside, not in control of his car.
And
I
behind.
cannot believe he's gotten away with this.
No.
I'll take it every day of the week. Thank you so much. Cheers, F. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, nice stuff. But looking back at it, because it was insanely chaotic, it genuinely feels like they just didn't notice.
They didn't notice, yeah.
Which is utterly insane. And I think when we look at the Max Verstappen thing, I believe that's slightly different, because he comes into that, in my opinion, in fourth and ends the sort of scene in fourth. So Max does not gain a lasting advantage. And Max did very well to not end up in the wall, to be honest with you. Whereas Charles Leclerc, he's obviously dumped the throttle. I'll take first here, and then I'll give back
and then
position
I'll
to
give
Lando.
Back one place, yeah.
And going to your point about teammates, I strongly hope that this isn't the case where
so do I.
they look at it and go, because this is what I think Karun said on the Sky panel. It was like, the team aren't going to argue it. They're not going to do this. They're going to be on the blower to the FIA officials. I'm like, That's not what happens anymore. Like, teams aren't
but
constantly
also
on the blower
put
to
that
the...
situation into a McLaren, and they're both going for the world title, so they have to decide.
Exactly, and rules need to be enforced no matter if you're in the same team or not, and that's how it works anyway. It's afterwards, if you're appealing and things like that, or you're seen afterwards and you get both representatives. That's usually when it's like, oh, it's hush hush, whatever. We're both in the same team. But for stuff like this, where Leclerc's literally cut the corner, that is either a penalty or it isn't, and it shouldn't be. Oh, it's on Hamilton, so don't worry about that one. Yeah, that's all good. It makes no sense to me because I'm pretty sure, again, going back to like teams arguing their case, they don't do that at this stage of the proceedings in the race. So Charles Leclerc's very, very lucky. I think Max, he went for something very audacious, and he was lucky to end in fourth and not in the wall and his championship over. But it was utter carnage. It was difficult for us to keep on top of, but you can't really give the same leniency to the FIA and the stewards when that they have to referee this race.
Yeah, I do. I'm not trying to excuse them, but unfortunately, there's too many circuits on the Formula One calendar now that, as these cars are enormous, that they're almost like they don't have another choice. And weirdly, this one isn't runoff. They're obviously like going over the grass, but it's still an advantage and it's still an opportunity to bail out. So whether it's a case of you need gravel to stop it happening or sausage curbs or something, because we've seen this. I remember one year where Hamilton himself basically just straight lined Mario Kart mushroom over the whole first sector, and it was fine. Because in a weird way, like circuits shouldn't be that where you kind of Verstappen played the percentage games as he normally does, but it's still kind of, I do understand why maybe like someone like George Russell was a little bit like, come on, these guys aren't staying on the track. Even though
he was more than that, mate. He popped off.
Well,
on
he
the
did.
team
He
radio.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, George was fuming the whole race, wasn't he?
He certainly was. Another question from P1 Pitch. Remember, our sport. Did Lewis get the short end of the stick compared to Max with the stewards? Right, let's get into this one now. Because the first couple of corners are done. Yes, I agree. Charles Leclerc got away with a very cheeky move there and kept the position on Lewis. This one, there are many points to it. So, I mean, Lewis essentially on track was second. You had Charles and Max and flipping Kimi Antonelli all going over the grass. The actual drivers on track, he was second at this point behind Lando until obviously everyone rejoined. For this one, of course, Hamilton is fighting Max Verstappen a little bit later on. I think this wasn't even on the first lap, was it? This was
lap 6.
Lap
Just
6.
Watching it now, yeah.
So lap 6, a few laps later, it's still kicking off. And Hamilton and Max, of course, Max sends the move into turn 1, doesn't he? Absolutely barrels into turn 1. And to be honest with you, not penalty worthy in my opinion. I think it's hard racing. I think it's a racing incident. They're both giving it, and that's what I want to see, right? I don't necessarily, I mean, Max, I'm sure, didn't mean to make actual contact, although some people will disagree with that. I don't think it's penalty worthy what happened there. Those two were just fighting for position. It was awesome to watch. It was then the next sequence of corners where Hamilton breaks so unbelievably late to try and get round the outside of Max and then to go to the inside of the next corner, snatches a break, goes off the track. There's the race director's notes that he's supposed to stay in this very narrow lane to rejoin, but he's going too quick, and the stewards are like, fine, no problem. We're not going to penalise you for that, which is something worth mentioning, because I think even Ferrari got confused as to why they got a penalty.
I thought initially that was the reason why he'd got the penalty, but it's not.
There were so many separate investigations for like one sequence of events. It was crazy. But it was the fact that Hamilton had not made the move and not completed the move on Max Verstappen and essentially just cut the corner. Doesn't matter that he didn't go on the runoff. Tried to, of course, get back on the track as soon as possible and then stayed ahead of Max Verstappen after that, which, on review, I can understand why he got a penalty. I feel sorry for Hamilton in the sense of there was so much hope for him to get a podium, first podium for Ferrari, and it looked very likely that would happen until all the carnage ensued. But when you look at what happened, you can't say that he didn't deserve some kind of penalty. Some people are feeling quite aggrieved that it's 10 seconds. But at the same time, those people may also be slightly confused as to what the penalty was for, because if it was just, not staying within that narrow lane, you can think, maybe 5 seconds. But it's the fact that he corner cut, hadn't made the move, and essentially gained a lasting advantage. So it's always very difficult, isn't it, to be like, what is the appropriate penalty? But corner cutting and taking a position should, in theory, be 10.
Yeah, and you look at the incident as well, and I think what the stewards probably took a dim view on is, one, he's gone off, like you say, and he's got that lasting advantage. And you mention about him not giving the place back to Max Verstappen. Of course, in that whole crazy sequence of events, which was absolutely unbelievable, by the way, I was like, what Grand Prix am I watching? This can't be Mexico, because this is far too exciting. Ollie Bearman passes Max, so of course Hamilton would have to give the move, have to give the position back, let Bearman through as well, and Max, because he's not done that. So the stewards are probably taking a dim view of that. Not only that, Hamilton's just bounced. He's not taken any kind of decision to basically maybe even back off a little bit and let the others catch him up a bit, and then maybe argue it. I know it wouldn't matter.
Had to give the position,
but it's the fact that he's not given the position back, and he's basically just put his foot down and gone, see you later, thanks very much. So 10 seconds when you kind of think of it that way, it's a big penalty. And I do feel sorry for Hamilton, because the way he'd qualified and how you're looking at the situation of the start, which also he got screwed over from, as we mentioned, with the Leclerc and Verstappen thing, mainly Leclerc, of course. A podium could have been on, and instead, he's had a really poor race after that. So it's gutting for him, but I can see why the stewards gave that penalty.
Absolutely. Gosh, so many incidents. It's
I know.
Wild to even try and cover them all. Tommy, let's go to your most memorable moment, shall we?
My most memorable moment was just how that championship battle changed throughout the race again. And as we get into this closing stages of the season, what we thought was the worst championship battle of all time is actually getting incredibly exciting, and every single little detail counts. You've just seen Lando Norris have arguably the best race of his entire career, completely dominant all weekend, smashed his teammate, never in doubt, led into turn one, which I think is very impressive at a track like Mexico, to deliver that performance and take the championship lead. And then Oscar Piastri, he's done a little bit of damage limitation himself. I think he'd have taken fifth, bizarrely, at the start. I like how his weekend's gone. Fifth is a great result for him. And of course, he's probably going to feel as aggrieved as Max Verstappen not getting those extra points on Ollie Bearman at the end, because he'd have had a great opportunity. And then Max, again, has gained points, weirdly, in the championship, which is an insane thing to think about, because it did feel like it was over yesterday, and we were saying he needs to finish at the top. And there were so many moments in that race watching it as a Max Verstappen fan. And if you're watching the watch along, I apologise, because you've seen them all the emotions of me being, pessimistic Max fan Tommy. But there were just so many moments where it was flipping and changing. The first corner, almost in the wall, that would have been championship over. Then the incident with Hamilton. Is he going to get a penalty here? Then he's losing places to Bearman. Then it was looking like, is he on the wrong strategy? Then kind of everything went his way, with everyone deciding to pit, and it looking like there was a situation where he was going to have to fly through the field, essentially, and start making all these passes. And actually, the whole sea just parted for him, and everyone decided to pit, which helped him. And then another twist at the end with the VSC. We are going to look back on this championship, and these little things, like people pitting here, or a certain driver not making a move, or a VSC, this is going to decide this World Championship. And that's why it is so fascinating, and every moment counts. And that is what's going to make F1 so exciting in these final four races, because everything matters so much.
It certainly does. And as you mentioned in the watch along, my goodness, it was championship on, championship off. I don't want to watch Formula One anymore. I love Formula One. Wow. You thought he was going to finish 7th when he came out the pits, or 8th. And I was like, no, Tommy's going to come through, bro. The soft
I'd have taken third.
No.
At the start,
you would have.
every
and then at the
day
end,
of the
you're
week,
flipping tables,
and now I'm
because
like,
the VSC came out.
no, you should have finished second. It's an emotional roller coaster.
I think
it's
because as a Max fan, that every single point matters from Max's perspective.
He has to be perfect.
In particular. He does. Was he perfect today? I don't think so.
No,
but,
he wasn't.
He definitely scrapped for a P3, almost a P2. But the championship battle, it's 1 point now. Lando Norris leads the World Championship by 1 point with 4 races and 2 sprints to go over Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen is 36 behind Lando Norris. If the McLaren is the way it has been around Mexico, by the way, Formula One graphic, please amend, because after free practice you said the McLaren
fastest.
was the 3rd fastest car. Don't think it is. Genuinely, it's Lando or Oscar's 100%. But then again, if you look at the previous races before that, you think, it's Max and the momentum. But I think Max made a good point of like, at the races that he had won leading up to the Mexico City Grand Prix were close. That in terms of his pace, he wasn't miles ahead of McLaren. He was a match for them at the very best, but he just utilised and executed perfectly. But the championship battle was brilliant. Like you can't say it isn't poised so beautifully. You've got Oscar, and we're wondering, is he going to bounce back at all? Lando is on a good run of form. Max is fighting a car that clearly sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. It's brilliant to watch, but Lando certainly, in my eyes, is the stone cold favourite now. Unless Oscar can get himself out of this rut. Let's get into a question from P1 Patreon member Quinty. Will Zach now officially make Lando the number 1 driver for McLaren? Can you imagine? Lando, you are 1 point ahead, my son. You are now the number 1. Oscar has to move away, move aside. No, there's no chance. To be honest, form, I know it's very much recency bias. Do they even need to make Lando a number 1 driver if Oscar's in this serious struggle town, and if he continues to be this way, Lando will just win on track. Like, he was nowhere near was Oscar. He was over 40 seconds behind Lando at the end of the race. So McLaren don't need to do anything. Just don't touch anything. Just let it cook, because it will play out the way that we maybe see it going now with Lando potentially becoming world champion. They don't need to do anything now. They've won the Constructors. They won it a while ago. And, I mean, they need to fix Oscar, because we can't be having him finishing 40 seconds behind Lando for the rest of the season. They need to fix... that's what McLaren should be focusing on, is why is Oscar Piastri now struggling so much? How do we help you get back in this championship fight?
Yeah, definitely. They can't pick a side after, it's 1 point in it. I think that they mentioned, didn't they, that as Max gets closer, will they have to pick a side? The problem is that they're too close, as we mentioned before. And I know this is pessimistic me appearing again.
Here we go.
But
I'm
not saying Max is out of it, but they've got some breathing room, and now it does feel like, because there's only 4 races to go, and it is over a win, and kind of a win and a 4th, 5th. That basically, like, McLaren should in theory be fine unless they have a double DNF again. Mate. If they have a collision, that's when it would bring...
You've learned nothing from this season, have you? You've got 2 sprints as well, which are 16 points. You've got 116 points on the table.
But no, this is what I'm saying. I know there's a lot of points on the table, but McLaren have absolutely, and Lando's absolutely walked that race, and the gap is a large one. Obviously, Max is still in it. It's weird that he's now closer, but the percentage is like lower of believing that Max can do it now, which is an odd one. But I think that's more just the fact that he's not, because he'd won all those races. He kind of think like this is going to happen till the end of the season. But I think just the way that Lando is driving, and he is the favourite for sure at the moment. He's on amazing form, but you never know with Oscar Piastri. Like, it's going to be fascinating to see if Oscar can pick himself up, because he's now going to be kind of written off and maybe weirdly, the pressure is now going to switch the other way. I think that this is going to be the fascinating thing with the McLarens, is we said that maybe Lando was performing so much better because the pressure was off. Now he's back in the lead of the championship, and Oscar's the one with the pressure off. I don't know. Like, will it change again? Who knows?
I don't know if Oscar has pressure off being 1 point behind his teammate. I feel like it's, it's...
No. I guess it's not pressure
behind,
off. I just mean more the fact that, like, I think with Oscar, the thing that I think is going to be the key here is he goes into that next race, and if he's back on form or can challenge Lando again, you could argue that he's like weathered the storm actually quite well.
Brazil coming up like that. Yeah, another storm coming probably.
Because, they are level. So Oscar, despite form, still has a good chance of winning this World Championship. Of course, it does. The car's there. We just need to see the Oscar Piastri of old for him to win it. But yeah, it's still very, very close. And as I mentioned in what I said before, that every moment is going to count. And I think that we're going to look back at this world title, and if Oscar Piastri wins it by a couple of points, you can look back at certain moments and go, oh, he did this, and that's why he's won the championship. And if Lando doesn't win, we'll go, oh, look, if he hadn't have had this DNF here, he would have done it. And Max, Spain, whatever, like there's going to be Austria, so many moments. Austria, it's going to come down to little moments, and the way this championship's going, it's going to be so close going to the end.
Certainly is. I bet Oscar's still again wishing he'd maybe just not given the place in Monza, and he'd have a 2-point lead in the championship. Yeah. And these so small points will certainly add up come the end of the season. A question from P1 Patreon member Thimma. How on earth can the pit wall at McLaren still ask the drivers to play nice? When are we seeing the rivalry between title contenders?
Yeah, it's ridiculous that they're on the radio going, basically, from my understanding, it was, if there's a safety car, we need to basically, Lando, could you tell us what to do for Oscar? And, I'd have respected Lando if he'd gone, stick the inters on. We said that on the watch line, didn't we?
That was my joke, but
yeah. But it's so true. Like, he should have just told them to F off, because
that would have been a very massive change in dynamic if he had said that after everything that we've said this season.
No. But it is just stupid. Like, let them race now. The constructors is out the way, and I think this does prove that McLaren will still do all these shenanigans. And even though the constructors is wrapped up, they will still, for some reason, be thinking about scoring maximum points.
The most points. What for?
What for?
What are we working for here?
The constructors is one.
The only thing up for grabs is the Drivers' Championship, and Lando is fighting the driver on the other side of the garage. I don't get it.
Like, I can understand if, like, Max was, like, really breathing down their neck and they need to work together to, like, make sure that, Oscar beats Max as well, because then, like, the Max is really, like, fighting and he's right behind them, and we need to make sure we don't lose it. But at the moment, they do have some breathing space. I know Max is gaining, and it is getting closer, but they at this stage they can afford to just let them race and do their own thing.
Yeah, totally agree. That's the racing I want to see. Next question, FIFA NR6. Did McLaren's massive advantage today save Piastri? If the car wasn't that dominant, Piastri would have probably been fighting for P7 or P8 with his pace all weekend. I don't think you can really talk about because Piastri was not feeling the massive advantage that Lando Norris had in the car. I think Oscar did have at times during this race good pace. Like, he was behind the Mercedes, he was just constantly looking like he was shaping for an overtake on somebody, but couldn't carve his way through the field like perhaps he would have wanted at one point. I think we were wondering if he'd beat Ollie Bearman to a podium and things like that. But I don't think it's necessarily him being saved. Like, he finished 5th. It's not like he was second place but 40 seconds behind Lando. He still lost a huge chunk of points to his teammate. So, Oscar after the race, chatting to, I think it was Rachel Brooks, seemed pretty, neutral about it all, and slightly lost, it has to be said. It didn't. He was basically trying to figure out what would make sense and basically make learnings. But the thing is, like, what do you learn at Mexico at these heights, this altitude that you'll then take into Brazil, which, to be fair, is also decent altitude, but a very different track. So I don't know. It was an okay performance from Piastri. I'm not going to say that he was saved by the car. I think he's just generally struggling. And yeah, there was a huge amount of dirty air for him as well. So a very different race to what Lando had out in front, but Lando was clear. Lando was absolutely dominant this weekend.
Yeah, he was clear. It's an insane thing to think about, that you just look at that gap, 42 seconds behind your teammate. That is literally like second Red Bull driver territory that you just don't see. And I know it's sound like a broken record, but this is insane what is happening with Oscar Piastri. To be 42 seconds off, he has to find something in Brazil. Anything just to be back on that level, because we know he's a good driver and can do it. And I don't think I don't think that Lando is a way better driver than Oscar Piastri for sure. They've been so close all year that they've been, the championship has been like trading between them, and I know Oscar's led it for a very long time, but in terms of like the race wins and things, it is very close between them. So this is not where like Oscar Piastri should be. And he just has to find something in Brazil if he's got any hope of this championship, because the form is quite frightening.
It is frightening, but not in a good way for Oscar. Let's move to someone that is very happy with their performance, and finally the breakthrough moment that we've been speaking about for a very long time on this podcast. We've had good positions for him, but this one was headline worthy. It's, of course, Ollie Bearman finishing fourth in the end, and I couldn't be happier for him. Of course, we had him on the podcast not that long ago. Absolutely lovely chap. Great to chat with him, and he's just, you can just see he's living the dream. He's obviously very new to Formula One, and what tenacity he showed today. It's not like he spawned in P4 and then held on for dear life. He fought the Verstappens and the Hamiltons and everyone else for those positions.
He passed him on track.
Exactly.
Move, yeah.
So he was not scared to get involved with the big dogs, which was great to see. But then also to have the relentless pressure of the two Mercedes behind him, constantly bearing down on him. And he didn't put a foot wrong. It was what he did in that sort of lap 6 chaos paid off beautifully for him, because he ended up finishing basically where he was at that point. So I'm so happy for Ollie that he's able to have this moment now in his career, so close to a Haas podium, but the strategy just didn't pay off for him, and it did for Max Verstappen. But it was awesome to see the emotional scenes afterwards as well. His family so proud of him. It was just a very heartwarming moment to see Ollie finish there.
It was incredible what he did as well, and it wasn't like a crazy qualifying situation where he's got his car into a good position and then no one can overtake now. He fought from 9th on the grid to get up there into the podium spots, took advantage of all that chaos. I mean, I can't believe what I was watching when we saw, not only had he had that good start, but when we saw that Hamilton battle, that Ollie Bearman just going through into 4th. It really was like, what am I watching here? It was unbelievable, and you can watch every single drive rating this year, like so many of them, and we have this talk all the time where we go, my God, Ollie Bearman is so fast. If he just hooked up a weekend with no mistakes and no penalties and errors here and there, he could get an absolutely unbelievable result, and that is case in point that he hooked it up all together. And there's always that little bit of disappointment when someone finishes P4 that's not been on the podium. Haas have never had a podium, and they were a P4. It's their best ever result. But his time will come, Ollie Bearman, no doubt. And you've got to think that his future, if he continues this form, Ferrari going to be looking at him for sure.
Who will he replace? That's the question in the years to come. But yeah, especially when he was running in third as well, like the dream was alive, and none of us saw a two-stop coming as well. We genuinely thought Ollie Bearman was on for a P3. Question from P1 Patreon member Caesar. Why did Bearman, Russell and other top drivers pit again? They could have extended on their mediums like Norris and Leclerc did.
It's a tough call. I think Bearman obviously ran that risk of, had he not pitted, he could have dropped back all the way down and tumbled down the order. I know it would have been very easy to go for broke, and I think the kind of that approach is a good job I'm not a strategist, because I always love to see them go for something crazy and go, P3, just go for it, try and get a podium, and if you finish 8th, so be it. But it's huge points for Haas. And you also look at the fact that just how much Verstappen took out of Leclerc by the end. It didn't seem like Max was racing Leclerc, and then he was able to eke out that point. So Norris is a completely different scenario, because he was just untouchable, and we know how good McLaren are on their tyres. And I think particularly if like Ollie Bearman had stayed out and Russell and everyone else had pitted, it'd have just made him even more easy prey, and everyone would have passed him. So I think Haas actually made the right call in the end.
It was touch and go for sure, that the mediums, which is something that we had to sort of shift our brains about a bit, didn't we? Because the mediums usually are the tyre. They're the tyre for the race. Everyone loves them, but they hated them this weekend. Like the softs were the ones that worked so amazingly well, and Tommy, during your pessimistic phase, which is, to be fair, all the time, but your most pessimistic phase was, of course, when Max was on the mediums at the start. He's got no pace, this, that, and the other. Turns out the tyre was actually terrible. And I can understand, as you said, for Haas and for Bearman, they needed to secure some points. If they'd got that wrong, if they'd rolled the dice for a P3 and ended up in P8, they'd have been kicking themselves because they were trying to overtake Sauber for 8th in the Constructors, which they now have. So I understand from a Bearman perspective, like P4 still means a huge amount, and I think it was the right decision, because Max gained a huge amount on Charles Leclerc. Max was never fighting Charles Leclerc in our eyes until obviously everything just paved so beautifully for him and he went on the attack. And he was on pretty old soft tyres in comparison to everyone else that had pit for brand new ones. And they were putting some lightning lap times in. So I genuinely think if Ollie had just stayed out on his own, he'd have been in a world of trouble. So probably the right decision for sure. As you say, Lando in a league of his own, miles clear. He could do whatever he wanted. He could literally chuck on the wet tyres, get out and have a walk and a cup of tea and get back in his car. He was home and dry. So yeah, I don't think it's something we can have a go at for Haas and for Bearman, because it was the right thing to do, because literally everybody else pit as well for the softs. It's not like someone gambled and made it work that we can use as an example. Like Norris and Leclerc were sort of chilling in their own strategy for the entire race. So I don't think you can't compare. So I think it made sense. Next question, P1 Patreon member Edith is my middle name. Did Pirelli cook? That two-stop was something else. Pirelli did cook. I said it in the watch along. I think they've figured it out, right? So what we need are soft tyres that work, medium tyres that look like they'll work but they don't, and hard tyres that are like putting concrete on. So they were kind of forced into doing a two-stop because they didn't want to be on the mediums, and the hards was just not an alternative. What that means for future races, if that's the case, I don't know. But I liked it. It's the unpredictability, but the problem is, once Formula One teams learn, if this was then the trend, they would learn a way of getting around it, and they'd make sure that a one-stop works in the future. But for this one, it worked beautifully well. It was such a trade-off between a 2 and a 1, and it was so surprising, as I said, to see the 2. So, yeah, Pirelli, you get my plaudits. That was a perfect strategy race.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't going to make a difference, and I think you've hit the nail on the head that the reason it did work is because you kind of had two tyres that weren't great. We've seen them do this before, where they put a difference between the tyres to try and spice up the racing, but unfortunately what happens is they just throw away one of them that isn't worth it, and then we get exactly a normal race. But if it makes the situation where one of them isn't good, and it throws them off. Yeah, it's great, and yeah, I'm surprised how in a track like Mexico, we always kind of mention about sprint weekends and things are good because they get less data and stuff. You think after 3 practice sessions they'd have figured it, like worked it all out and stuff, but instead they didn't, and F1 is always much better for it when you get a variable and something changes in the race and they go, oh, actually, no, this is completely different. And you just almost like need just like one team, like, and in this situation, it was kind of like Red Bull going on the mediums, changing it, then everyone sees something different. The problem is when they all start on the same tyres and pit at the same time, that's when everyone just copies each other. So yeah, Pirelli, well done. And I really hope this trend continues, please.
Please and thank you. Next question, P1 Patreon member Georgina. Should Mercedes have let George pass before they did? Would this have changed the outcome at all?
They're in a tricky situation because they didn't want to let George through because Kimi Antonelli was having a good race. You kind of saw there that despite George being the one that's having a great season, he's 160 points clear of Antonelli. You kind of played out there that like George isn't the number one driver at Mercedes like he probably thinks he should be. That's shown by the contract situation and everything else. And unfortunately for George, despite his best efforts and doing an amazing job this season, he is not far and away the favourite at Mercedes. And they didn't know what to do really, because I think what they had to do was either say flat out no, and I can see why they kind of didn't want to do it, because Kimi Antonelli was having a great race. His confidence has been shot quite a lot of this season, and if they'd let him go and he'd just tumbled down the order, he'd have obviously been very frustrated. But what they did do was kind of like wait a little bit too long, then swap, and you kind of need to make that decision one or the other. You can't kind of do half. It's something that we've seen a few teams like Ferrari do in the past, and we say you either need to make the decision completely and stick by your guns and just go with it, or you say no, you're not coming past. But what they did was let George cook his tyres, essentially, not be able to get the advantage, didn't help him out too much, and then decided to swap when it was kind of almost a little bit too late. But yeah, George was absolutely fuming on the radio. It was quite crazy to watch. George Russell, who's someone that's very PR friendly and whatever, to basically be very angry with this team. I think it's the first time we've ever really seen it.
Yeah, he properly popped off at Mercedes. He was not happy at all that he was not being let through. It was clear that he was the faster car at that stage of the race. I don't think you can deny that. Couldn't pass Antonelli, so it wasn't like he was extraordinarily faster.
That was wild from his team to say overtake him then, by the way.
It's like, okay then, overtake him. It's like, wow, okay, fine. Not sure what that says. I think I do know what it says. It's Toto Wolff saying, well, go
my
get
boy
him,
Antonelli,
go get him.
Go get my
with your undisclosed
Antonelli.
multi-year contract, George Russell will see in 2026, and they're very sort of secretive, aren't they, about how long they're signing George. But they should have, in hindsight, yes, let George pass before they did, because as we heard, he was overheating the car, and I think he, even with that sort of, I don't know if it was a wow or whatever noise or sound he made after he was let through, but it almost felt like a too little, too late sort of moment. Because after that, he made no impression really on Bearman. Like, as much as we were kind of expecting it, maybe he was going to mount a challenge, he couldn't get close. He didn't do any more than what Kimi Antonelli was able to do. So, yeah, if I was George, I'd feel a little bit aggrieved. Like, why would they make them fight when it's not even for the win? They're not even on the podium at this stage. And Antonelli had a solid amount of time to try and make an impression on Bearman, but didn't. So a bit
it's
of a
an interesting
one.
message it sets at Mercedes, doesn't it, going into next year when they're both signed again. We think in theory that, Mercedes could well have the car to beat. And, George has seen there that he's not got the backing of his team and that number one status that maybe he kind of thinks that he should deserve with Kimi, the kind of rookie, and they would basically be like, yeah, we'll do good for the team. You're quicker, have a go, and we'll swap back. But they were very much like, no, thank you.
It also doesn't shout that they give two hoots about the Constructors' Championship because they are locked in
Same.
for this. I know, Tommy. I know it was an excuse. I literally just tossed the ball up for you to get a home run with
the
it.
fight for P2 is the most boring
it's an
thing
insightful thing. Yeah, I know, Tommy, but it is an insightful thing that, if Mercedes truly cared about that and maximising the points, you'd think McLaren are in this fight for second place in the Constructors. They're the one that's constantly maximising every ounce of a point out there. Mercedes is like, yeah, you two can fight. Don't worry about that one. We'll finish fourth in the Constructors, no problem. Very strange, very strange. There's a lot of money on the line as well, for sure, with the teams. So let's head now to biggest winner, driver or team. I think for me, it has to be Lando Norris. It is a huge statement in the championship for this race weekend. Completely and utterly untouchable from start to finish. So for me, Lando Norris, and honourable mention to Ollie Bearman. But I think in the greater context of the championship, it is a massive weekend for Lando.
I can't believe Ollie Bearman is fourth, and I'm not going to pick him as biggest winner, which is insane. But it has to be Lando Norris. We said last, our controversial opinion that was picked in best reactions last time out was that is Lando now championship favourite? And I was kind of like, well, yeah, I can see it. And it kind of got almost like laughed off a little bit, saying that he was third favourite before, coming into this weekend. All the talk was on Oscar's got the points lead, Max Verstappen's coming, can he win the title? Lando's completely forgotten. And I think this win now surely makes Lando the overwhelming favourite. He's got the car underneath him. It's a completely dominant win. He's got the points gap as well on Max Verstappen, who we know knows how to win titles. So, it's got to be Lando.
Right. What about biggest loser? I think my suggestion for this one is Alpine. They were literally in another formula this weekend.
It's crazy, isn't it?
37 seconds Gasly finished behind Lance Stroll. Colapinto finished 0.3 behind his teammate because these two apparently are glued together for the entire race. But Alpine, my God, like they just absolutely nowhere. So they're getting my biggest loser.
Yeah, definitely up there. I think.
What about Alonso, mate? I mean, he got told to let Stroll through and then mysteriously then just retired the car.
Yeah, I think Carlos Sainz is a good shout as well. The fact that he put in that unbelievable qualifying lap and then had, of course, the penalty, and then just an awful race with the fact that he had his pit limiter problems, and then they gave him a drive-through, which felt like trolling from the FIA, really, to be like, right, come on, have another go.
Test your pit limiter, lad. Come on.
Yeah,
Let's see if it's working this time. Come on.
Yeah, there's a few candidates here. I think Lewis Hamilton's been hard done by with what should have been potentially the podium finally happening. He's finished down in 8th. But yeah, I did look at Alpine actually and just think, like, my God, they are in a kind of situation now where it feels like for the kind of few races gone by, like, we don't have like a far and away worst team. That very much is Alpine. They are almost becoming like the Williams or the Haas of years gone by, where they are just fighting at the back and miles off.
Well, I think it just shows that they literally just don't care about this car.
No.
Like, not even a single point of them is thinking about 2025. They're just putting 4 wheels on the car, a front wing and a rear wing, and going, go on, lad, off you go.
It's interesting that the Gasly and Colapinto always seem to be having the greatest race of all time for the final position. They're always locked in together and battling for
no team orders this time, from what we could tell. But maybe there was, which just wasn't televised. Right, let's head to our predictions that we made on Wednesday to see how we did. It is currently level pegging, 47 apiece. We had to Good Surprise, where I went for Oscar Piastri, and that was really surprisingly bad. So that's no points for me.
And I went for George Russell, who also had a pretty poor race, must say.
Beaten by Kimi Antonelli, so that is definitely not a good surprise. Now this, my big flop...
Oh my God, I forgot about this.
My big flop is up there with one of probably your Baku prediction, not your good one, your very, very bad one. This is a generationally bad big flop because I went for Ollie Bearman.
And had the greatest race.
Almost got a podium for Haas. So my big flop that I've been celebrating this entire season for getting me a lot of points has backfired massively.
So my big flop was Yuki Tsunoda, who finished 11th.
Finishing 11th, sorry, there's absolutely no chance it's a big flop. However, I will say, Yuki was going sort of quite quietly about his business. I'm not saying he was Max Verstappen podium territory, but he had a 12-second pit stop. 12 seconds. My guy was easily finishing 9th, I reckon, which, of course, not the dizzying heights of Ollie Bearman, but he was doing very well indeed for what is that second Red Bull seat. And the strategy was right. I think he had the same as Max Verstappen pretty much. And
he stayed out, didn't he, for a very long time. And he was running up in 4th, wasn't he, behind Max? But he basically was like hung out to dry a little bit as well with the strategy. And
then the pit stop just absolutely killed his race. So I feel sorry for Tsunoda, but it is not a flop, Tommy.
Well, he's had a bad stop.
No,
it's not.
It's
not, is it?
Okay, right, let's go to pole position, where I went for Max Verstappen. Incorrect.
And I went for Lando Norris, which is
congratulations.
Correct.
I hope you're happy with the money. Third place, I went for Charles Leclerc, which was too low. Unbelievable.
And also the VSC, crazy.
Would have been good for the championship.
I went for Oscar Piastri.
No, not on the podium once again for Piastri. In second place, I went for Max Verstappen, which was one too high. So I could have got 2 points, and I got none!
And I went for Lando Norris. I obviously wanted to go for him for the win, but you blocked me. How dare you?
I did indeed. In first place, I went for Lando Norris, so I could have had a 3-pointer.
Oh my word, the VSC cost you.
Devastating. I knew there was something within me that was willing for Max Verstappen to get through on Charles Leclerc at the end. I didn't know what it was, because of course it doesn't make sense, because I want Charles Leclerc to finish P2, but then also Charles Leclerc finishing P3. Does that change anything in the world? No, not really, but it puts Max closer in the championship. It also puts me ahead in the championship, but no, alas. The stupid VSC. I'm even more angry about that now. What about our one crazy prediction? For me, I went for track limits for one of the top 3 in either qualifying, important Q3 lap, or penalty in the race. And that did not happen. I wish I'd said not top 3 in the championship. Wait, did I say top 3 or did I just say top 3? What's written down here says one of the top 3, and there was 100% track limits. What are we saying?
No.
Yeah, penalty in the race. Hamilton was 3rd, and he got a penalty.
No, you can't just give a penalty for anyone there. No, that's not.
Yeah, I did mean top 3 in the championship, but I wish I had said just the top 3, and then I would have got it.
I said.
What are we thinking?
No. I said all McLaren pit stops are under 3 seconds, and I can't believe
the way I knee slid on the watch along when Oscar Piastri bagged a 3.6.
The way I shouted "F off McLaren" during quite loudly, and within 3 seconds got a WhatsApp from my wife saying, "Please don't swear so loud," because Grace is in the room behind and she hadn't gone to bed yet.
Oh my God, can you imagine? She adds to her vocabulary, Max Verstappen, and then F off McLaren. Wow, that is absolute cinema if that happened. It is a bit weird though, isn't it, for you to be obviously in this championship rooting for a quick McLaren pit stop when every fibre of your being is wanting the other side of that so Max can benefit.
I mean, to be fair, if Lando had had a 33-second pit stop, he'd have still won. So,
it's true. Our Patreon prediction. If you're part of the P1 Patreon, then you get to submit a prediction that we select. The one that I chose was Alan Enderpay. Someone ignores team orders. I feel like Colapinto and Gasly.
We might find out later, but as time of recording,
as of right now, no social video to suggest that there was any ignoring of team orders, sadly.
And I went for Captain Ovs 3420. At least 2 championship contenders have some sort of incident with each other on lap 1. Lando and Max were 4 wide going into the corner.
No.
He was involved.
Incident, that's what you said. Crash contact
Push goes fully off track. Technically, Lando was on the inside, so he pushed Max off because he was...
Get in the bin. You were far too specific with this, Captain Obs. Otherwise, you might have been able to get away with that.
So it's 48 all now.
48 all. So it's a great week for predictions. We both score 1 point and keep it level. So it's 1 point separating Norris and Piastri. It's 0 between Gallagher and Bellingham. What about the family top 3? It's currently 10-9 to the boring Bellinghams, as we know always. And I fielded my sister. In third place, went for Fernando Alonso, which sadly he did not finish.
My mum went for Oscar Piastri. No.
In second position, again, screwed over by the VSC, my sister went for Max Verstappen.
And my mum went for Lando Norris. No.
And in first position, my sister, to be fair, she got 2 of 3 in the top 3 correct. Charles Leclerc, she went for P1. He was close, 30 seconds behind, but still close because he finished P2. So no points, sadly.
Lando disqualification. She could be getting 2 points.
We're cooking, yeah.
And my mum went for Max Verstappen. So
Which
incorrect. So no points for any of them, so it stays 10-9.
Okay, there you go. Wow, that is incredible work. Enjoyed speaking about all of those different incidents. I'm sure you'll all have your own opinions on what happened with your favourite driver and how we have agendas against them. But we look forward to reading all of that. But I honestly am loving Formula One now. It's needed an injection of just chaos, just a bit of, I don't know. Mexico was like, you know what, guys, we need a little bit of something. They did it. Of course, Lando wins, but the whole picture of the championship is so beautifully poised still. Would love it if Max was just within a race win to make things a little bit more.
I know, just a few more
but
points.
We've still got 4 races to go, my guy. If he wins in Brazil, let's just say, wins in Brazil, second place, Lando, 36 becomes 29. All of a sudden, Tommy is getting 2 letters of the tattoo.
29, is that enough? I don't know.
No, it's not enough. You need to be ahead, but
yeah.
It's still he's still in reach.
Yeah, he's still
you
in
have
reach.
Hope. Whereas Charles Leclerc was out of contention 2 races ago. So
George Russell's still in though, which actually he should have argued on the radio and said, "Look, I'm the one going for the championship here."
Oh my god, that would have been so.
That would have been the funniest radio ever.
That would have been the greatest.
People like, I've seen that meme about everyone DNFing. And...
That'd been so good. Right, thank you everybody for tuning into the podcast. Remember, P1 Live Delusion Tour tickets still available. We are going there next week, so if you're free, come along. We'd love to see you there. And Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are, good job, Mexico.
Very good job, Mexico.
Just well done. Well
done. Not Baku.
Same again
Mexico.
next year, please.
Yes, please, with the new cars. God, what are they going to be like? I cannot wait to see.
Will they be cutting out down the main street?
Yeah, might have to get out and push it. Right, thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Lots of love. Driver ratings coming soon. Week off, then Brazil. Brazil's coming. Come on! Bye. I have to say bye, Tommy. You're waving, but what about audio? Say bye.
Bye.